Hey, fellow patriots, I'm Bree.
And I'm Blaze. Some call me Pa. It has been said that we have 4 boxes to keep ourselves free. These are the soap box, the ballot box, the jury box, and the ammo box.
And we are the 4th box. We are here to arm you with enough information, resources, and skills to take back your freedom, increase your self-sufficiency, and inspire you to join in the fight against tyranny.
Thomas Jefferson said, "Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty." Thank you for joining us and for joining in this fight.
Welcome back to the 4th box. All right, everybody. Welcome back to the 4th Box podcast. The last couple weeks have been truly crazy and chaotic in every sense of the word. I know that we kind of went into a lot of that last week. We talked about some of the things that are going on, and it's alarming, it's frightening, but that never seems to stop. And this week we have more information that maybe is scary if you're not informed about it. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to kind of get you up to speed with this topic so that you don't feel the fear that could be associated with it if you don't educate yourself. So we're going to be bringing in a guest here in just a moment. But before we do that, Pops, I'll let you get us started.
Yeah, greetings, 4th Box Patriots. We're so happy once again to be coming to you from our 4th Box studios, tucked away safely in the virtual Buckman Tavern. It's a place that Patriots gathered 250 years ago, and they gather here again today. So we're very happy to have you along tonight. Very excited to bring our guest in, which will be happening momentarily. As we prepare to kick off the show tonight, I'm going to raise a glass in toast tonight to Mr. Jaden Ivey, who is a Chicago Bulls basketball player who was cut from the team because he stood for his faith and the teachings of the gospel in the face of the pride and the LBGQRXTYZ community being crammed down their throat from the whole NBA. He stood against that, was cut from the team. I say, well done, young man. God bless you. And I'm sure you'll land on your feet someplace. Cheers.
Cheers.
I do have a moment in history for tonight. From back in 1776, in a bill signed by John Hancock, its president, and dated April 3rd, 1776, the Continental Congress issued instructions to the commanders of private ships or vessels of war, which shall have commissions of letters of marque and reprisal, authorizing them to make capture of British vessels and cargoes. So we had talked about that earlier, a moment in history 250 years ago. That happened this week, 1776. My quote for the night, and hopefully that ties in to what our guest will be talking about: facts are stubborn things, and whatever may be our wishes, our inclinations, or the dictates of our passions, they cannot alter the state of facts and evidence. And that was from John Adams, second president. So that's what I have to get us going tonight, Bree.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a great quote. I think that's going to definitely be relevant, as are, I think it is with so many of the conversations that we have. The truth is never wrong. You've said it many times. And I think that's going to be important to consider as we move through the conversation this evening. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guests. Tonight, we're joined by Dr. Beverly Jensen, a health advocate, international speaker, and lifelong practitioner of natural medicine. She's worked in over 30 countries and has a background in public health, environmental communication, and education. Dr. Jensen has spent years raising awareness about the health impacts of electromagnetic radiation from everyday wireless tech, especially when it comes to children. She's the founder of initiatives like Kids and EMF and is leading a growing movement aimed at empowering families, particularly moms, to take control of their home environments and reduce exposure through 10 million moms for safer tech. In a time when the walls of tech are only further and further closing in, we are thrilled to have you with us tonight to speak about these things. Dr. Jensen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Glad to be here. The truth. It's often hard to listen to, and I it's a daily occurrence to hear stories either told to me or I hear them from others about people being advised on something that is happening with their kids' health, and they cannot see it as being a cause or a contributing factor being the use of wireless devices. So let me start back with my own history in this field. In the 1960s, I was a kid growing up in Okinawa. My dad was an engineer working on developing satellite communication technology, and everybody else rotated out of this military island every 2 years, but we stayed for the whole decade. He was working in the civil service, and the tools in most fathers' workshops are wrenches and hammers and saws and such. The tools in my dad's workshop were a Geiger counter and an oscilloscope. He was measuring radiation. And whenever I wanted to visit in the workroom, I would get this little speech, which has become my mantra, that every device that sends radio signals and receives radio signals is emitting radiation and is dangerous. Stay back and keep it turned off when you can. And I think if each of us would recognize that we are electrical beings, that every cell in our body is directed by electrical impulses from the heart and the brain, and then remember that these devices, the cell phones, the cell towers, the routers, everything that is sending and receiving radio signals is dangerous to us. Then we wouldn't be putting it against our head. We wouldn't be wearing it in our breast pocket or our pants pocket or the women's butt pocket. I have this fantasy of creating a wall of photos of butts with all the. You see this all the time where women have their cell phones in their back pocket, where it's cooking the ovaries. So
Yeah.
it's a factor in infertility, just as it is for men who are wearing it in their front pants pocket. But the telecom industry has been very diligent in making sure we don't know this information, not wanting us to be aware of it. And they have been told, the FCC's been told 3 times by courts and by the Government Accounting Office, Accountability Office, to go back and look at the science and revise these 1996 safety standards, and they've never done it. And there's no indication that they're ever going to do it, because the people working in the FCC now and always are former members or employees or consultants for the telecom industry. So it was a Harvard health professor who wrote the book and coined the term captured agency, and he was referring to the FCC. And this is true of several of the agencies of the U.S. government now. But yes, it's captured by the industry that it's supposed to be managing. So after about 2 years of working with moms and getting that, they're the ones who would make the phone call. Unless the husband was already having severe symptoms and suspected the wireless devices, it was always the moms who called to have a survey done, mitigation in their house. The child wasn't sleeping, or that's usually the case, why I would get the calls. But what I found was that unless the husband was already suffering severe headaches or can't sleep, then they were not very much interested in this. They would go along with the program to keep the wife slightly content, and they do want to protect the children, but they weren't really on board, because if some of the tactics here are to lead, when you come into the home, put your phone into a one space so that you're not walking around the house with this device on you. And so if he's not totally into this, he will take the phone call in the middle of the family's activities, which is not where he should be taking it. So I've decided about 2 weeks ago that instead of considering this an information campaign, a campaign, I am going to turn it into a movement, and that is to my goal is to engage 10 million moms in changing their beliefs and their behaviors around this technology. And there's been studies of successful social movements that found that the social movements are successful when 3%, only 3% of the population uh, changes their beliefs and changes their behavior. Then the culture shifts and laws are changed. And I think that it's going to be the moms, just like we had Mothers Against Drunk Driving, change that whole cultural setup. It was moms who said we got to get the lead out of the paint. It's causing serious problems to the children. And there's a number of other uh, movements in the last 50 years that it was the mothers who complained to the doctors, and action was eventually uh, taken, changed. So my goal is to engage 10 million moms in this in the next 3 years. There's no reason to hope that the FCC is ever going to get out of the idea that the harm caused by this radiation is just thermal, and because it's actually the harm is being caused by oxidative stress to the body. And the last review over in Europe, and this was supposed to be a revision for the WHO, and the panel who did the review, they actually ignored 99% of the studies on oxidative stress. So we are stuck, and the whole world kind of follows this standard, which is absurd. With this 19, it was actually developed in '86, and I say, as a seventh grade science fair student would understand better what the situation is now. They actually used a plastic mannequin head, and filled it with a saline solution, put a cell phone, this is 2.5 gigahertz, an inch and a half from the head, and then measured how long it took for 6 minutes. They put it there for 6 minutes, and then measured how long it took to heat up the head. And that is our standard. It's incomprehensible how ignorant that is, that a saline solution represents the brain, and 2.5 gigahertz has nothing to do with the phones today. The average American is on a phone 5 hours a day. And then the one that we spend another 5 hours in front of the computer. So it's totally unconnected to reality. Yeah. So I'm going to get the moms to change this. That's the plan.
Yeah, well, I think right off the bat, I think that is the best course of action, and I think for us, it's something that can really resonate with the two of us and our listeners, because that's really what it's all about. I mean, how long can we sit and wait for a government agency to change something that we can try to just change ourselves. And so I love that that's the approach you're taking. And I think it's very spot on in saying that the moms will be the one to do it, because, women tend to be more intuitive in general with these types of things. And they probably are a little bit more in tune with the changes that they're seeing in their children. So I think that we both probably have a lot of questions that we could already follow up on. The first thing that I would like to ask, if I can jump back to what you said, speaking of moms, you mentioned earlier on, that mothers would call you after noticing a change in sleep patterns, things like this. Where were those mothers kind of in the early days of the work that you were doing in this space finding your information? And was it the first course of action? Was it something that right away they thought, okay, maybe this is an EMF situation? Or was it something that they kind of tried everything else and then were reaching out as a last hope?
It was largely the group in which I worked most was actually influenced by my daughter, who has forever. She intuitively knew that these devices were not healthy. I remember in 2008, her husband won some sort of raffle at his company, and he was given an iPad. This is 2008. When he brought that home, she said, "Oh, we're not keeping that. You sell it, give it away. We're not going to have that in the house."
Yeah.
And nobody was talking about it in 2008. I think she just intuitively knew that, and she had never heard me talking about my experience and my dad's experience. So I think that because she talked to these friends, and she was in a huge online group, a WhatsApp group, I think it was, and talked about some of the effects of the technology, and everybody in this community was heavily using it. My favorite character walked around with a cell phone in both of her butt pockets.
Perfect.
So, and she didn't want to hear about it at all. But the families where in one case, girls 7 and 9 years old were given a little. Looked like it was a panda that read them stories at bedtime. And this device, this is like an Alexa device. When I go into people's homes, the Alexa or Echo and the baby monitors are the highest levels of radiation. And those baby monitors are often right over the cribs. But anyway, we go into this house, and the radiation from that panda, I called it Bad Panda, was 250,000 megawatts
Oh my
per
gosh.
square meter, not microwatts per square meter. Huge. It was no wonder the children weren't sleeping well. But then we went around the house and found other places where things needed to be changed and improved. And yeah, so it was, in this case, it was often just the influence of information that my daughter had given, and in the group. She also had coffees at her house and invited people over, in which I talked about some of these factors. Yeah.
Okay, that's really great to hear. I know Dad's you kind of bursting at the seams to ask some questions, but that's good to hear, because I think it speaks to how powerful word of mouth is in this case, and how much people can, by sharing their own testimony, impact those around them. So that gives me a lot of hope for this 10 million moms movement. I think that, with people noticing changes in their own health because of it, it should be able to hopefully spread like wildfire.
Yeah. I think it's helpful to talk about some of the effects. That first of all, let's talk about the effects on the grown-ups. So if you notice this with yourself, the most common thing is sleep problems. I mean, right now, 70 million Americans have difficulty sleeping. And so that is huge. Then headaches. I mean, severe disabling headaches happen. And with the children, there can be quite a shift in behavior, becoming short tempered, not being able to focus, not having a good memory. The memory issue affects the adults a lot too. I mean, this has been, especially in studies in the Scandinavia, they've been tracking uh, uh, the use of cell phones with dementia, and it's a big factor. Um, it's also been a factor in autism with children, and in the tech world of Seattle, I've seen cases where the men are not truly connected with their surroundings. Uh, and everybody just smiles and says he's on the spectrum, the
Yeah.
autism spectrum. And it's just kind of noticed, acknowledged, and accepted. But there's a physician, Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt, in Seattle, who's been working with autistic children since 1990. And so the causes of autism are not merely radio frequencies, but it's a factor. It's a serious factor. Dr. Klinghardt went to the homes of women who had autistic children and measured the radiation levels in their sleeping space, and then the homes of women whose children were normal, and measured the radiation levels in their sleeping space, and it was 20 times higher in the bedroom of the woman whose child was autistic. When he's helping to recover helping the child to recover from autism, if the parents will not agree to clear the home of EMF, he will no longer even take the patient, because the difference is day and night, 180 degrees. If they will clear out the radiation from the home, the child recovers. And if they won't, the child, it may improve, but it never recovers fully. So, and Dr. Klinghardt's been doing this for over 30 years now. So it's a factor. With adults, memory, dementia is a factor. The sleep disorder, irritability, changes in personality. All of these are factors for the adults. Now, for the children, they are, and this is why I'm focusing on moms, because the children are conceived in this sea of radiation. So they are exposed to this from conception. And there's a physician at the Kaiser facility in Oakland, Dee Kun Lee, who's did a lot of research on pregnancy and radiation, and found that especially the last trimester and the weeks after birth are very critical times for the nervous system's development and the brain development. And we women need to know this. I mean, I see pictures of women balancing their laptop on the abdomen. It's a horrific effect on the child. Or this is so common, they're holding the child and talking on the phone. And then my least favorite one is they've got the baby in a front pack and they're holding the phone away from their head while they're talking on it on speakerphone, which is a good thing to do. In China, it's required by law that a pregnant woman, when she's in public, is wearing a guard over her abdomen, and the police will check it. I mean,
Wow.
they are very much aware of the effects on the fetus in China. So yeah, and those shielding materials are available in the U.S. I made sure that my daughters were wearing sort of a look more like a baker's apron from the chest on down to the knees when they were working on computers.
Yeah. Wow. So all of that was just incredibly powerful information. I think that people are not considering the way that this is impacting, I mean, certainly themselves, but not even remotely an unborn child or, a very, very, very young infant child. So that's incredibly powerful. And it's interesting to hear you talk about China because I wondered, since you have sort of worked in so many different parts of the world, do you tend to notice that this is something that people are more aware of in other countries across the board, or is China sort of an anomaly in that way?
Um, no, it's at least in the economic and social circles that I was familiar with in Asia, that was understood. I remember being at a resort somewhere in Thailand and or Malaysia, and a mother saying, and there was about a half a dozen young teens, 12, 13, 14, all talking together in the shallow end of the swimming pool. And the mom said something to me about it was nice to have a reason and a place to get them away from their screens. And this was a few years ago. So yeah, they're aware of it. There's also been some really dramatic, dark films out of Korea about this, about teens using the internet screens. Yeah.
Hmm. That's
You
interesting.
know, when I'm talking about why I want to focus on the moms and how and when I say 10 million moms, of course, dads and grandparents, and I think a lot of teens will join this. There's there's being more discussion among the teenagers themselves who's saying, well, this is not healthy. We're not going to do it. And I think they're all welcome to join this. And it's interesting. There is some physiological reason that the males are not as aware of this and interested. Um, I've been reading The Invisible Rainbow by Arthur Furstenberg, and it's a history of electricity and life. And they started doing experiments in the 1700s with electricity. And there were periods, decades, and this was in Europe, of course, in which it was real popular, and people were setting like pop-up stands in the town square and giving people electrical treatments. And these were people who had no qualifications at all to be doing this. But there was a lot of what doctors will call them chemists, which is what they were, and all around Europe doing some experiments. And there was actually a I think using the term medical is a stretch, but it is essentially the medical publishing world of the 1800s. And there were a number of reports. A third of Arthur's book is actually the notations of all the resources. And there was quite a few publications talking about that women were more susceptible to the electrical treatments and had much more side effects. And there were quite a few deaths. And I think, and now women are much more likely, more commonly getting the autoimmune diseases. We are, by our nature, much more susceptible to the environmental toxins, and so women and the children, just by the very fact of their youth, are so much more susceptible to this radio frequencies and the other forms of EMF also than are the men. So it's there's some physiological reason why they're not quite as interested.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting. Pops, I know that you've been waiting to get some questions in, so go ahead.
Yeah, I have a couple. Beverly, I also was a child of the 60s. And of course, we didn't have any of these gadgets at those times, but we did have an AM radio that we really thought was something. And we could all huddle around it until midnight when Wolfman Jack would sign off with the last song of the night. Does something as simple as that, does that provide a threat, even like an AM radio?
My daughters asked that question too when I was talking about it. No, it was sending radio signals but not receiving them.
Hmm.
Now, I remember in the 60s there was talk about not letting your children sit too close to the television screen.
Yes.
Because there was concern of radiation from that screen. And I honestly don't know if that. I just don't think anybody should be sitting very close to screens in any case. But I don't really know what if there was truly a health threat to that. I don't know.
Okay, I did have a follow up to that. So you had mentioned with the guys walking around with it in their front pocket and the ladies with it in their back pocket, and it was doing harm in either case. What kind of space needs to be created to really reduce that, or to make it significantly enough of a reduction that it's no longer a threat? I get it when it's right up against you or your head, but what kind of distance needs?
I don't. If you're going to, there's been over 200 studies of the effects on the men, and I think that they're just much easier to study than women because the sperm reproduces every, I think, 4 days, whereas the women are born with the only eggs they're ever going to have, and the men, it's. I remember reading years ago our most vulnerable parts of our body are eyeballs and men's balls because
Yeah.
they're exterior.
Hmm.
They're much more to the environment, exposed to the environment. With the men, it creates motility issues, and the chromosomes are damaged. DNA is broken, and so these are some of the effects. How to prevent it is to put it in a case or fabric that blocks the radiation. I've got a glove. I use this. I can't even handle this. So my mouse is wired, and the computer is on an Ethernet cord. But still, when I'm sitting here for too many hours, I will still feel it in my hand if I don't have on my glove. But this is a fabric with metal in it, and this is the sort of thing that would protect the body if you were going to continue to put that in your pocket. It's really better to have it in that sort of metal fabric and be carrying it in a bag, uh, uh, briefcase or something. So that would be better.
Okay. I'd like to give you an example. We listened to some of your material in preparation for when we were to have you on back a few weeks ago. And as a result of listening to your show, I moved my phone, which I didn't know any of this stuff. I moved my phone from being charged up on my nightstand beside my head. I moved it out into the kitchen, maybe, 18 feet away or something. And I noticed within days my sleep had been better then probably it's been since we started with these things. And I had one early back. It was a bag phone at that time, and I had it for business purposes. But that was all the way back in 1996. So I expect sometime around that era, I began to experience less quality sleep. And I noticed, and I mentioned to Bree, within a couple of days of having moved that thing out into the kitchen away from my nightstand, and to this day, my sleep is significantly better than it has been for years and years and years.
Hooray.
Yeah. So,
Thank you
so
for telling me this.
well, thank you.
I tell people, get your phone. Actually, we should treat the whole bedroom as a sanctuary and get all electronics out of it. And if you've got a smart TV in your bedroom, I've been in rooms where there was no radiation in the whole rest of the room. Then in front of the smart TV, it was horrible, and it was off. So if even when it's off, it's still emitting radio frequencies. The only solution is to unplug it. Yeah, and get the charger and the phone out of the bedroom. If you're using your phone as a alarm clock, instead buy a cheap battery operated analog. It works great, and it's safe. Yeah. Some other things in the bedroom is to make sure that there's no laptops in there. There was one story of a child that was now 30 months old, 2.5 years, had never slept through the night, and the consultant went into the bedroom, and they were playing lullabies to put the child to sleep on a wireless laptop in the room. That would be the reason the child didn't sleep for 2.5 years. So treat all the bedrooms as a sanctuary, and get the devices out of the rooms. And I think this is particularly important for children, that they start early, knowing that they're not going to have these in their bedrooms. Keep them into. I advise every family. If their children are older, you'll have to have a conversation with them about this. But if they're not, you are the ruler, and you can set up a communications room. So that's where the devices are all kept, and then there's certain hours in which people can, be playing games or whatever they want to, or doing their homework on computers, and then it's left in that room. So if to put themselves to sleep, either mom reads them a story, or they read a book themselves, paper.
Yeah.
And there's so many studies showing that children from ages 4 to 19, there was a meta analysis done of 49 studies on the effects in memory and learning by comparing whether they learned the material on screens or on paper. And in every case, the recall and what they had learned was much stronger when they had read it on paper, studied it on paper. And the same situation, the difference between writing and on paper and a keyboard. Because when we're physically writing something on paper, the brain remembers it more than if we are hitting a keyboard. So start them early in reading.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's such a simple fix to it, but so important.
Something else that I think is important that everybody hear this. In every room, every home I've been into, the router was sitting square in the middle of the living room, right next to the TV. And other than the cell phones, which depends on the cell phones, how many there are and how powerful they are, the router is the most powerful and destructive unit in the house. and it needs to be put into the least used room, which cannot be a bedroom. I like utility rooms or a garage, or if it has to be in an office space, then actually wherever you put it, you should shield it. And the quickest, easiest, cheapest way to do that, because they're now not real simple little rectangular devices. The last one I had to wrap up looked like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. It was about 14 inches high and had a slanted roof. You know, so what we did was got a roll of screening material at Lowe's for $10. And this is the screen that you replace on your screen door, the screen on the windows. Wrap that around it 2 or 3 times, and then I just staple the edges together, leaving a space open for putting in the cords and turning off the switch. And I reduced this last one I did, reduced it by 97%, and it cost $10. And in a few minutes of effort, turn the device off while you're doing this so that you're not handling handling the live wire. But and we still had enough Wi-Fi coming from that router, reduced by 97%, to use cell phones upstairs and a couple of laptops. We still had good connection. So that tells you that the routers, especially in the United States, are a whole lot more powerful than they need to be, and that's very destructive to us. Yeah. Then you can also get for another $10, get a timer to put on that, so it automatically turns off an hour before bedtime in the house. So during the night, then you do not have the router sending out signals all night long. That helps a great deal too.
Yeah, that's huge.
Beverly, I think I remembered you suggesting on a show that we watched some weeks ago. Is there a benefit to putting that thing on airplane mode any or all of the time when you're not actively in use?
The phone?
Yes.
Oh, yes, mine is on. In fact, after I plug the Ethernet cord from the router, I run it across the apartment, throw a rug over it so I don't trip on it, and then I put the laptop into airplane mode also. And then the phone, anytime, this applies for all of us, anytime you are in the home or the office or any place where your phone connects to a Wi-Fi, you can put it on airplane mode, still get calls, make calls, send texts, receive texts, and you reduce you'll reduce your radiation levels by 95% by doing that. And you're
Wow.
not missing anything. Now, when you go out, when you leave the home, if you want to be available, and I think this is something we really need to reconsider, being available 24/7 is really not necessary. But if you need the phone on when you're out of the house, you'll have to remember to put it back, take the airplane mode off.
Sure. Bree, can I slip one other question in?
Yeah, go ahead.
So you mentioned the autism, you mentioned dementia, and when I hear radiation, my mind kind of thinks of cancers. Is there any indication through studies that there are higher risk of cancer or proven risk of cancer as a result of the EMFs and problems such as you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, in 2018, the National Toxicology Program released the results of a multi-year study they did with the rats. It's really interesting. These lab rats have got very similar biology and behavior as we humans do. So they are actually a very good test. And they found and this is more in depth than what I'm going to say. But there was a lot of the male rats, particularly, developed a particular type of brain cancer. And then the rats were not holding the phone up to their head. They were
Sure.
just exposed to this level of radiation. And they also, more of the females got a schwannoma of the heart, which is I don't know that it's actually called a tumor, but it's a very serious, if not fatal, condition. So within a month of the National Toxicology Program announcing those results, which were the director of that program had done the study with the intent of putting to rest once and for all that cell phones caused brain cancer. Well, the results of the test did not show what he was hoping to find. Within a month, the Ramazzini Institute in Italy announced that they had been doing the same study. They had 2,500 rats, and they found the very same results. And it's a particularly type of brain cancer that is very aggressive and comes on real fast. And there's no recovery from it. I had an interesting story. Back in 2013, I had just moved to Costa Rica and went to a home of a woman who was offering yoga classes. And her husband, he did work, was doing business inside the US, and he had one of those, looks like a headphone, but it was just in one ear, and it was foam. So and this was 2.5 gigahertz, 2013, and I just met these people, so I thought to myself, should I say something or what should I not? And because already in 2013 there was a lot of indications that these devices in our ears were causing brain cancer, and I didn't say anything, and I don't know if I had said something if the outcome would have been different. But 15 months later, I attended his funeral, and he had gotten the same cancer. As I call it, the glib cancer, because it's a particular kind of cancer that's very, very swift, very fast, very aggressive, and he was gone in 6 weeks, and
Wow.
yeah, uh, so. Since then, if I see somebody that's doing something that crazy and I've got any connection with them at all, I don't care if I do sound like a crazy, I will say something. Most of the time, I'm saying something in my poor Spanish to moms on the bus who are doing something they really should not be doing with their babies. Yeah. So yes, and then there's been a lot of cases of childhood leukemia. And we had this in our close circles in Bangkok. 3-year-old was given an iPhone so she could call daddy anytime. And I don't, you know, by age 4, she had leukemia. And we can't say for sure, what else was going on in the house, but I don't know if she slept with it under her pillow, like a lot of people still do.
Sure.
But it's very suspicious.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I I know we're kind of running short on time already. We'll try to get our last couple questions in. Can you speak to what the biological differences are that make it so much more harmful, if that's fair to say, for children?
Oh yes, it is the stage of their development. I mean, the skulls are much thinner. So the radiation from the phones penetrates the skull. There's a famous picture. In fact, I've got it on the Women's Medicine Bowl, and it's a picture of the thermal effects on a head of an adult, a 10-year-old, and a 5-year-old. And on an adult, the thermal effect of phone against the head is maybe twice the size of the phone. With the 5-year-old, it affects almost the entire brain. That thermal effect.
Wow.
Then the fact that their nervous system is just developing, this interferes. There's a study was done Yale University just recently, and this study is also reported on the Women's Medicine Bowl, and they were actually using, this is a technique that was new to me. They're using cells from I guess from a fetus that and watching what happens to those cells when the radiation is put near them and what level of radiation it is, and they would then could see how the radio frequencies affected the cell's ability to divide, or what happened to the cell. And that's a study from Yale. And in that case, they were not using our favorite Norwegian white rat labs, whatever. white rats.
Yeah, lab rats.
Yeah, they were using cells from, and then they call this an organoid. It was new technology to me, but this is being used now for some studies.
Interesting. Yeah. Pops.
The only thing I wanted to make sure we did, Beverly, before we did end tonight, if you were to have an opportunity to tell anybody 3 things you should do immediately in regards to your phone and your other devices that are pretty simple to do but have the biggest impact, could you I'm going to go into work, and I already have, because we have some people with young children, some people that are expecting in our workplace, and I'm going to make sure to advise them to watch the show. But I also have been trying to spread this since we've watched your show and talked to a few others about the concerns, and anything that we can do to help spread this message, we certainly want to do it. So if there's 3 really hot items that you could suggest for everybody, I'd love to hear those.
Okay, and then I think I've given you a list of websites to put underneath the posting, and I have got a new website called Kids and EMF, and this is what I call the vanilla website for people who've never heard of this and have no clue of its effects. So this will introduce the topic. And then when they're ready for some serious investigation into the science, the policies, and the larger impact of this, then they go over to the legacy website, which is Women's Medicine Bowl. But your question is very good. What can they do today? I think the first thing is tonight to get the chargers and the phones out of the bedroom, recognize the bedrooms as being a sanctuary free from all the devices, and that's something that you can do. And then I would also have the conversation and make a decision in the household to where you're going to put these devices when you come in the house, so that we don't have 2, 4, 5, 6 people walking around the house with these cell phones on, because they're all of them are continuously connecting to the towers, and that's the problem. then if you don't get the router moved tonight, turn it off. There's a switch on the back of it, which most people are not aware of. You can turn it off at night, and then in the next few days, get the screening material and wrap it up. Even if it has to stay in the living room for some reason, wrap it up and you'll reduce the exposure by 95 to 97%. And it costs very little. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you should also look at getting some material and carrying the phones not on your bodies. In any sort of bag, man bag, purse, briefcase. Definitely don't put it in your chest pocket because that's not a good place either. It
Okay.
needs to be in a protective shielding cloth. I list on the shop of the Medicine Bowl resources for this, for
Okay.
many of these products. Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you for
That's
having
awesome.
me.
I wondered if you had an opportunity. Bobby Kennedy mentioned this very topic related to keeping these cell phones away from children. He mentioned it in a talk at the CPAC this week. I wondered if you had a chance to see that, what you thought.
I did not see what he specifically said, but I've been following his work with the Children's Health Defense for years and years. And he's the only one who has made the comment a lot of school districts are stopping the cell phones in the classroom. And all of them are for the reason of it's interfering with learning.
Mm-hmm.
And the social interruptions are continuously affecting the ability to learn. He's the only one who said it's a problem of the radiation also. And so even when they're taking their cell phones and just dropping them into their backpacks, unless they're putting it on airplane mode, it's still beeping to the tower and they're still getting the radiation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Bobby Kennedy's the only one who's brought up that subject. But I mean, and it's interesting, an iPhone, if you turn it off, it continues to ping to the tower. It's only that only stops when you, and that's what's causing the radiation levels, the radio frequencies, is if you put it on airplane mode. So they all need to be put onto airplane mode before they're put into the backpacks or however they're being caged up during the day.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I've never heard anyone say that the airplane mode is actually the better alternative to just shutting off the device altogether.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We normally close with a Bible verse, so I will have my dad do that in just a moment here for us. The last thing I wanted to say, and I know you just touched on those websites, we are going to go ahead and share those in the show notes. Is there anywhere else that people should look to for your work, for more information on what you're doing, anything like that you'd like to call attention to?
The 10millionmoms.org. I would like the women to start, and men, to start signing up. And that will be on the Kids and EMF website, kidsandemf.com, to start that movement. We're going to change this. It will help us all be healthier.
Absolutely. We'll do all we can to help spread the word.
Okay, so we're all set with that. Thank you so much again, Dr. Beverly. It's truly been such an impactful conversation. You've given us so many ideas that we can take away right now and implement. So I really hope for everyone listening, you do these things tonight in your home and you tell your friends and your family. With that, I will turn it over to you, Dad, to wrap it up with the Bible verse.
Okay. Beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the tradition of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after Christ. And that is Colossians 2, verse 8.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. And thank you once again, Dr. Beverly Jensen, for joining us tonight on the Fourth Box.
Thank you.
Okay, wow. That was great. What are your thoughts before we wrap this all up for the night, Dad?
Well, this is one of those topics that I think is starting to get some traction. We are certainly going to help promote the 10millionmoms.org, especially for expecting mothers, expecting for moms and dads and families with small children, young children. There is so much meat on the bone here. Autism, dementia, rapidly accelerating rates of cancer are all attributable back to the use of these wireless devices that we have all at this point grown up with. And if there is anything we should be doing as a society and as parents, it's looking out for the least amongst us, the children. Those who do not yet have the capability to make these decisions for themselves. We need to be sharing this message far and wide. And what a great explanation, and some very simple things we can do in the house to help protect ourselves from the dangers that are becoming more noted and more widely recognized.
Yep. Yeah, completely agree. I think this is such an important conversation. And for our listeners who join us every week, if you're wondering why this is relevant to what we do, what we talk about, how this is relevant to the Fourth Box, it's relevant because she mentioned it early in the show. We cannot just keep putting blind faith into the hands of politicians to protect us from anything that is harming our health, our physical body, our mental capacity, our spiritual well-being, any of those things. We have to stop giving our power to another entity to protect us, period. We need to bring this into our own home. We need to make these changes, and we can. These are things that we can do for ourselves, for our own health, for our families, for our communities. This is what we talk about every week. This is how we make change. And this is an incredible way to do it. This is a great way to, hey, make yourself healthy, make yourself strong. This is how you take part in this fight. So that's what it's really all about. I'm really glad we got to chat with Dr. Beverly Jensen this evening. All the information will be in the show notes. With that, stay vigilant.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you so much for listening. We really do appreciate the support and truly love getting to share this message with anyone who wants or needs it. The best way for you to support the show is to subscribe, add a rating, and share with everyone you know. You can find us on Instagram, X, and at thefourthbox.com. We'll see you next Thursday at 6 p.m. Stay vigilant.